Mr. Buffett, in 1976, in your tribute to Benjamin Graham, you wrote, "Walter Lippmann spoke of men who plant trees that other men will sit under. Ben Graham was such a man. You're both such people. Could you share with us your 100-year vision for Berkshire?" It's a question to you both.
Yeah, I would like to add one thing about Ben Graham. Ben Graham did all kinds of things for me, and he never expected one thing in return. I mean, just, you name it, and he did it. And there wasn't any hidden, or a hint, I should say, of anything he expected in return. I checked. He wrote a book in 1949 that, in a sense, said to me in very persuasive terms that what I'd been spending the previous 8 or 9 years working at and loving was all wrong. And that book has been, I check it every now and then on Amazon to where it ranks. And Amazon ranks hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of books by sales. And Ben Graham's book has been up there like number 300 or 350 or something like that forever. And there isn't any book like it. I wrote HarperCollins a note the other day because they're bringing out another edition. And I asked them how many copies have been sold, and they said the records didn't go back far enough, but they had 7.3 million copies of this little book that changed my life, and continues to outsell every investment book. Investment books come along, and they're number 400 or 1,000 or something for a while, and then all of a sudden they're number 25,000 or 200,000. And this book, in how many areas can you find any book that has had that sustained position? You go back and look at number 1 at 1950 or number 2 or number 3, and you look at in 51 and 52, they don't continue. I mean, they just don't continue. Cookbooks, maybe 1 or 2 of them last for a while, but there is nothing. And this book lives on, and everybody keeps bringing out new books and saying a lot of other things, but they aren't saying anything that's as important as what he said in 1949 in this relatively thin little book. So our vision for Berkshire is exactly what we said today. We want it to be a company that is owned by its shareholders and behaves in a way that society is happy that it exists and not unhappy. And we will have unlimited capital. We'll get lots of talent. And we've got a base that can't be beat. And there's no reason why it can't be perpetuated, just like Ben's book, and maybe be an example to other people. And if so, we'll be very happy. Charlie?
Yeah, one of the really interesting things about Ben Graham, he was a really gifted teacher, a very honorable profession. And that is what has lasted. However, an interesting fact that he was sheepish about in his old age was that more than half of all the investment return that Ben Graham made in his whole life came from one stock, one growth stock, Geico, Berkshire's subsidiary. And at the time he operated, there were a lot of sort of lousy companies that were too cheap, and you could make a little money floating from one to another. But the big money he made was one growth stock. Buying one undervalued great company is a very good thing, as Berkshire has found out again and again and again.
And Ben wrote a postscript to the 49 edition pointing out exactly that fact and acknowledging it, but also took some good lessons from it. He said that's the way life is, that you prepare and you don't lose everything along the way, and then something comes along. And Geico came along because a banker in Fort Worth that had financed Leo Davidson, and I think the banker got 3/4 of it. And I don't mean Leo Davidson, Leo Goodwin, who founded Geico, then called Government Employees Insurance Company, and you can figure out the acronym. And the deal almost fell apart. The deal was, as I remember, for maybe $1.5 million or something like $1.25 million. And it almost fell apart because of a difference of $25,000 in the net worth delivered. This is a business that's, worth tens of billions. I mean, but he pointed out the irony in that too. I mean, he was honest about. He was totally intellectually honest about the failings, but also the strengths of his approach, and that to some extent, Charlie and I have seen that in our lives. I mean, sort of the prepared mind, the willingness to act when you need to act, and the willingness to ignore it, every salesman in the world, and the imperative to ignore them. And it's one or two things that make the right decision. If you make the right decision on a spouse, I mean, you've won the game. And here's enormous important decision, and you got all the time. I mean, in the world, you got more time now than you used to have when I was a kid to make that decision. And I don't know whether a third or whatever percentage below that one. It is really interesting. The thing to do is just keep trying to think things through and not do too many stupid things, and sooner or later you have a Lollapalooza, as Charlie would say.